What's good, everyone? My name is Jacob Moses, and welcome to another episode of the Not Boring Tech Writer, a podcast where in each episode we cover a different skill that you can apply to enhance your skill set, improve your marketability, diversify your career, and ultimately break the stereotype that technical writing is a boring career. This episode's skill? Getting your first job in technical communication. All students and recent graduates in technical communication know this feeling. Getting your first job can feel overwhelming. Job descriptions list required skills you didn't even know existed, employers ask for certain levels of experience, and that one super eager recruiter on LinkedIn just won't holler back at you. That's why in this episode, I chat with Thaddeus, aka Tad Dieken. Tad is a recent graduate with a degree in English from Illinois State University and current technical writer at Accuray. At 23, Tad understands the challenges students and recent graduates face in finding their first job in technical communication and shares tips on how you can land that first gig, including how to search for jobs, how to market yourself as a good candidate for an entry-level tech composition, and once you land that first gig, how to navigate the workplace and find your place as a technical writer. Big shout out to our dear friends over at Knowledge Owl, a knowledge-based software for powering the Not Boring Tech Writer podcast. And I hope you all enjoy the episode. What's good, Tad? How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Just kicking it. How's life in Madison, Wisconsin?
It's pretty cold, but
It's
pretty. It's about the territory that I signed up for whenever I moved up here, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, because you went to school in Illinois. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Illinois State.
So you've been living that Midwest life for a bit now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Good, man. Very good. Well, Tad, so happy to have you on the podcast. We got a great skill to cover today, and that is getting your first job in technical communication.
Ooh.
And it's great to have a fellow young folk with me. How old are you, Tad?
I'm 23.
23. I'm 26. A couple of young folk talking tech comm.
Oh man,
it's going to be a good time, and I know you're going to have a great perspective to share with listeners about how to get their first job in tech comm.
Oh man, I sure hope so.
Yeah, well, the beauty of this podcast, Tad, is we have a great mix of listeners. We have a lot of seasoned tech writers who have been in the game for a bit. We got academics, and then my favorite part, we got a lot of students who are just getting involved in the industry and want to learn the skills that they can acquire to break that stereotype that it's a boring career. And look forward to hearing your wisdom. It's going to be a good time. Awesome. Well, Tad, to get us started, I'd love to start by hearing your story. You're 23 years old, been in the tech comm industry for about 6 months now.
Yep.
What got you interested in tech comm?
I think it just really sort of coincided pretty well with my own personal interests. I love going on and just learning as much as I can about literally anything. And so I found technical writing to be a pretty good opportunity for me to be able to maintain those sort of personal interests of mine where literally every single day I come in and get to learn something new on the job.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. It's awesome. But my English teacher was pushing for me super hard back in high school for me to go off and pursue a career in journalism, but wasn't quite sold on journalism. But I think the technical writing path is definitely very conducive to both my interests and then general aptitude and interest towards writing. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Awesome, Tad. So you were a writer first. That's correct. That was like that first passion, is that you enjoyed writing.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and that seems to be the common theme that I hear with all the writers that I've interviewed. Like yourself, I was at first interested in pursuing English in university because, just like you, I enjoyed writing. And I mean, at first, before I learned about tech, I'm like, that was the thing that writers do. It's like maybe journalism, maybe English. So I'd love to hear, how did you discover tech com? Was it in university? Did you pursue a tech com related degree?
Yeah, so my university didn't have a technical writing specific degree, but typically the people that attend my university that wanted to go off and do technical writing majored in English. And then from there, you could also, if you wanted a specific specialty to be attached to that, then you accompany some sort of minor, whether it be computer science or math whatever the case may be. But so I was studying English in college, knew I wanted to use writing in some sort of capacity, but wasn't necessarily sure right at the very beginning, and specifically how I wanted to go through and do that. But yeah, I sort of I fell into this student technical writing position with my university's IT department, and that's what sort of opened my eyes more to the technical writing career. Some of my friends in the major were also trying to become technical writers with their English degree as well. So I think just sort of a combination of just general fortune of meeting certain people and then landing that technical writing position with my alma mater was definitely the bigger pushers for me to go into tech writing.
Awesome. So what was that moment when you were like, this is the career for me? Because you mentioned before, you've always been a lifelong learner. I always want to dive deep into a subject. You're studying English at this time. I imagine you're reading a lot of books, not so much on the technical side. So when did you know that this was going to be the right career path for you?
I think, as weird as it sounds, I think the most solidifying moment that I had for knowing that this was the right career path for me was whenever I actually got the position and started working with the company that I'm working with now. They make cancer chemotherapy radiation equipment. And so it was the first day of orientation. I work for the manufacturing department. So the documentation that I create is used by the assembly technicians. And so I was going through and being given a tour of the assembly line for where they're going through and making all these just crazy intricate machines. And it was a very surreal stepping back, sort of an awe moment where it's like, oh man, I never thought I would use my English degree for this, but here we are, complete uncharted waters. But looking at that from a different angle, it's like, oh, cool. I've got so much to learn. And that's, all the fun that's there in the position itself. But yeah.
That's awesome, man. And you're exactly right. I mean, from all the tech writing conferences that I've attended and all the people that I've had on this podcast, most tech writers just kind of fall into this field.
Yeah.
Like maybe they start as, pursuing computer science, or they start pursuing journalism or English, and maybe they listen to a podcast that tips them off to TechCom, or they, like yourself, have a couple of friends who are in the industry. And then it's this great discovery where it's like, I can use my writing skills to be in a very high demand field.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
First of all, one that pays well, one that doesn't have much of a ceiling. I know. I think in TechCom, there's like the end user documentation where you're writing more to the user, but then all of the crazy stuff that's going down with developer documentation. And for the person who's that lifelong learner, the infinite computer languages that you can learn and adopt to your skill set, it's awesome, Tad. I'm glad you're experiencing that. So I want to rewind back a bit to your university years and talk about what was the job search like, Tad, for you whenever you wanted to pursue TechCom? Like, what skills did you have to learn to really position yourself as a good candidate for an entry-level TechCom job out of university?
Ooh, man. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for technical writing, whenever you graduate from college, is really just figuring out how to get your foot in the door in the first place. Because I remember, I'd see all these different job postings for everything, and it'd say entry-level tech writing position requires 2 to 4 years of experience.
Like, come on, man.
Oh, well, okay.
Like I'm 19 or 20.
Yeah. But I think the thing that really helped me out the most was my university offered some technical writing classes, so I was able to go through and build a portfolio of documents that I was able to go through and share with prospective employers. But then along with that, so I had a student technical writing position for the IT department for my university. And so it involved technical writing, some social media, a little bit of copywriting as well. So it really the perfect student position that a English major in my position could have, because I felt that it put me in a good place where I could be qualified for a couple different career options as far as entry level foot in the door opportunities, whether it be social media based or copywriting or technical writing. But yeah, I think those were definitely super beneficial. My friend gave me his Lynda login information, so I went through and did a lot of teaching myself HTML, XML as well. And so I think being able to showcase that I had those skill sets under my belt, where I had some familiarity with them, definitely I think helped me get my first position as a technical writer.
Cool, Tad. And I appreciate you talking about the computer languages, because this is something that I definitely fell into whenever I was a student, is that I loved writing. I loved the cadence and the prose and the rhythm and all that. But like the second we started talking about like computer languages and programming languages, like it was like super intimidating, even though it was like pretty simple with the HTML. For the listeners, the students listening to this podcast who they've bought into the writing aspect of TechCom, but maybe feel a little overwhelmed and discouraged by picking up some of these programming and computer languages, what advice would you have for them? Like how deep do they really have to dive in to be able to, for it to just be good enough, to be able to get that first job?
I think it definitely depends on the position that you're going to. I think there are certain positions out there that might want a little bit more of a specialist whenever it comes to programming languages for it. But I think for a very large amount of positions out there, they really just want some sort of general familiarity with it, because at the end of the day, you're not the person that's going through and actually being the programmer, but just enough to be able to talk shop with the programmer. So from the SME expert, they don't feel like they're just talking to a brick wall or whatever it may be. But I really think HTML and XML are great start off points for programming languages to pick up. They're both, it's like tag based syntax for it. So it's very input output and very rigid rule structures that make it pretty quick for the most part to pick up, or at least develop a good amount of familiarity with. I think Python is also pretty easy to develop a sort of a general understanding for it, not necessarily a high level functioning technical expert by any means, but it's sort of intuitive in nature where it's quicker to pick up. And I think those three especially are definitely super beneficial for you to be able to put on your resume whenever you're going off and applying to different places.
Awesome. And Tad, I don't necessarily expect you to know the title of these tutorials off the top of your head, but do you happen to remember the specific Lynda tutorials that we can include in the show notes for these listeners? If not, we can reconvene afterwards and make sure we get a nice little list for them.
Yeah, I can't remember the one for XML off the top of my head. I think the HTML one had something to do with semantics of HTML in the title.
Okay.
But
cool.
Yeah, no, I don't know the full name verbatim off the top of my head.
Yeah, all good. We'll connect afterwards. Make sure we get them in the show notes for the folk.
For sure.
So Tad, did you find yourself having to like tilt your expertise or tilt how you marketed yourself as a technical writer at all to being an appealing candidate to employers, or did you just come in with a nice, strong resume? Or did you add in a little tad flair to marketing yourself?
I think whenever I was going through and applying for different places, there's definitely a little bit of curation that you're going through and doing for yourself, just to be more marketable, especially with that first sort of foot in the door opportunity of you where you don't have as much experience posted on your resume and all that other stuff. I think it's definitely super helpful to be able to, compensate for the lack of experience on your end with making it seem like it's a great culture fit or it's a great personality fit. That would definitely stir the employer's interest for bringing you in for an interview. And then, you can go through and dazzle them there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome. Were there any associations or like networking platforms that you messed around with? I mean, I think about my own path to becoming my very first job in technical writing. There's Write the Docs was huge for me. The Eric Holster and the homies up in Portland, their Slack channel in particular. Were there any like existing platforms that were helpful for you to gain this shared language, get a good feel for what TechCom was like, and find yourself a career in TechCom?
Yeah, I think STC can be pretty beneficial for their information that they provide out there. I think Write the Docs also has some great newsletters and posts out there that can give you sort of more insight onto the more nuanced ins and outs for everything that's going on in TechCom currently. And so I think definitely having some sort of working knowledge with sources like those from different insiders within the field, I think is definitely, it gives you a huge leg up for whenever you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And listeners, I mean, I'm not super familiar with STC, but Write the Docs, like no matter your level of expertise in technical communication, no matter how skilled or naive you feel you are in the industry, like that is a very welcoming bunch of people. So pop into their Slack channel, say what's up, maybe catch a conference in Portland if you can.
Yeah. I'm planning on going to this.
Are you? Good, man. Oh, it's a good time. I don't know if they still do it this way, but you start day one by walking through this beautiful forest area.
Yeah, I saw that. It was like
fellow documentarians. Yeah, it's dope, man. So, Tad, let's take a shift from the skills and the way you marketed yourself to get a job in TechCom to actually getting in the field. You've been working in TechCom for about 6 months now, professionally with Accuray. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Accuray? Awesome. So, man, what do you think so far?
It's good. There's all sorts of different directions that TechCom is going in right now, and I think it's really exciting. There's so many different avenues that I think are tangential with technical writing that it allows you to have a good amount of flexibility with the career path that you want to go on. If you have a little bit more of an affinity for leadership, there's lots of opportunities to go into project management with tech writing. If you have a bit more of an affinity for graphic design, I know UX design is a huge avenue that lots of tech writers are going through and going down nowadays. If it's more of a love for writing that you have, technical writing and copywriting have a lot of intersecting points for a lot of different positions. But yeah, it's cool. It's a very versatile career that allows you to explore all sorts of different personal interests that you might have.
Oh, Tad, I appreciate bringing up all the different paths that the tech writer can take, because you're exactly right. I mean, I think about whenever I actually majored in TechCom, believe it or not, at UNT. And I remember one of the classes was manuals and procedures. And I remember my classmates being like, I don't want to write manuals. Like, why am I pursuing TechCom? But I mean, that's just one class, right. And that's not the right mindset, because once you can get those core TechCom skills down, that desire to learn everything, ability to have a shared language with an SME. I mean, you're exactly right. We have the freedom and the ability to confidently pursue different kind of avenues within TechCom. But having that base is great. So Tad, talk to me about day in the life as a new tech writer in the tech comp field.
Oh man,
what's the daily task look like?
lots of emails, but
yeah.
come in. So I work with the manufacturing department for Accuray, and so I'm the only technical writer that's in our department currently at the moment. So it's I will link up with different engineers and SMEs just about any sort of documentation that needs to be put in place for new lines of our equipment that are being sent out for our customers. But lots of editing that takes place as well for any old documents that need a little bit of patchwork for them to make sure that they're reflecting our current line of production for everything. But going through and doing all that, generating new user manuals that our assembly technicians use, which that's really where a lot of the excitement about learning something every single day kind of comes into play a lot more, because being an English major back in college, I definitely did not have a plethora of experience in medical devices.
Sure.
Coming in, linking up with the SMEs, and they run down all the need to know information for different steps in the procedures, and then I go through and figure out how to write it so the technicians understand it. But
so Tad, are you remote or do you work in the office?
I work in the office. So
what's the environment like as a writer and new hire and recent graduate in this tech com industry?
It's pretty cool. One of the aspects for my job here that I like so much is that I work at a cubicle, like all that other stuff, like pretty standard office, but it's also linked up to the manufacturing area. So if I've got any sort of question about documentation that I'm working on, I step away from my cubicle, I walk just to the other side of the building, open up the doors, walk out, different machines, multi-million-dollar machines that are being built, and I can just walk right up to these assembly technicians and ask them about, any questions that I have for the documentation that I'm producing. It's crazy. It's so cool.
That's huge, man. That is crazy. And I don't remember the exact episode, but we had Neil Kaplan on the podcast, I guess last year. And his skill was bridging the gap between SMEs and technical writers. And he was doing exactly what you're discussing. Tad was, hey man, if I got a question, like I'm just going to get up out the desk and holler at them, see if they're available. Maybe start off by building some rapport, buy them a coffee or take them out for a panini. So I'm glad you're getting to do that as well. That's good stuff.
One of the biggest things that I've learned for technical writing is that whenever I was in college, I assumed that technical writing was a career that was very conducive towards introverts. And that's not to say that an introvert couldn't do this career by any means, but there's such a huge social aspect for being a technical writer that really comes into play where, the information that you need for the documentation isn't necessarily going to be right there in front of you. And you kind of have to go down and chase it down. And it's kind of the fun, honestly. It's pretty exciting getting to track down all the information for everything. But
that's a great point, Tad, because I mean, like the introvert, they're probably more of like a more burrow into a problem, which is the great skill of all tech writers. Like we see an issue, like before I go see someone, it makes sense. I'm going to dive in and see if I can do it myself. Great for the introvert. But then should we hit that roadblock and be, hey, like I need to reach out to developer Susan or developer John, whomever. You're right. It's a great opportunity for us to practice more of our social skills and get up and chat. Do you find yourself more of an introvert or an extrovert, Ted?
No, I'm an introvert. For sure.
So what's that been like as an introvert? 23 years old, working with multi-million-dollar medical devices. Has that been a challenge, stepping up and having the confidence to converse with SMEs? Do you have any tips for fellow introverts listening to the podcast?
It is a little bit of making that jump at first for going over and getting that information from SMEs and tracking down everything, especially, whenever it's your first job, like new to everything, all that other stuff, still learning. But I think really the thing that helps offset all of that the most is really just asking questions. Being I found for the most part that just being very curious for everything and showing a lot of enthusiasm about your curiosity usually translates pretty well for really just about anybody. And so I think from that aspect, it really it helps a lot for me going through for getting information from either assembly technicians or SMEs or whatever it may be, is, just approaching and being transparent that, I don't know this process currently at this time, but like I'm super interested to get more information about it. And I think that it for me so far for my career, knock on wood, it's always translated over very well. And so, kind of helps with the, naturally like want to be more introverted, keep to myself, but just approaching it from that standpoint translates over well. And usually people are pretty happy to help you with whatever questions you have.
Awesome, Tad. And in our last episode, Michal and Pavel shared a similar sentiments. We talked about how we can survive in the dev world as technical writers. And that was their big takeaway too. It's like, hey, like as you're approaching these SMEs, like, yeah, we are not on their level programming language wise, but if we show some enthusiasm, we show we're trying to have that shared language, we show that we're trying to learn. They said that was just instrumental to really building that rapport and seeing the mutual benefit proposition of working with one another. So glad to hear that you've had a similar experience.
Yeah.
So Tad, to wrap up, I'd love to talk about any final advice you have for the student or the recent graduate. They know they like the tech comp field, but they may be feeling discouraged by all the different titles that they see in Indeed or not hearing back from the employers. What's some parting advice you'd have for the discouraged job searcher?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think it really just comes down to, just keep being motivated and keep pushing. Something's going to work out eventually. Even though, you might have had like 5 interviews or whatever may be the case, but, you definitely, you never get the job that you don't apply for. And so, even if it seems like you're not qualified for the position, still go through and apply. Like there's nothing that, nobody's going to chase you down and berate you for applying to a job that you maybe didn't have enough years of experience. Cause at the end of the day, you're not working at that job in the first place. And so, really just keep pushing. I think another thing that's really beneficial to new graduates is there's always a bunch of tech writing contractor jobs out there that are more short term, like a 3 to 6 month technical writing contract that, typically the more seasoned tech writers would shy away from it just because they want a little bit more of a longer income stream that's coming from it. But I think for a person that's entry level for the workforce, like that's your perfect time to come through and get your first technical writing job. Like that's how I did it. I wound up hired by the company afterwards. I started as I was a 3-month contract whenever I started for them, but then I wound up being hired on full time at the end of my 3-month contract. And so, it worked out super well and it's super beneficial. But I think those sorts of opportunities are really perfect for the recent college graduate. So I definitely recommend looking at those.
Awesome. Well, Tad, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us. If anyone wants to connect with you, have questions for you about how they can break into the tech comp fields, any good tips on job searching, where can people find you online?
LinkedIn is perfect. It's my full name is Tad Dieken. It's TAD, and then it's DIEKEN. Although I think actually my LinkedIn might be my full name. That's Thaddeus, so that's THADDEUS.
Cool. We'll include in the show notes for people to holler at you.
Awesome. Cool.
Well, Tad, thank you so much for taking the time to chat, and we will talk very soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. See you, brother.
Thanks again to Knowledge Owl, a knowledge-based software for powering the podcast. And thanks so much to each of you for listening to the podcast. And we will chat very soon. See ya.